Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for this special edition of our ongoing coverage. We hope you and your families are staying safe and doing well no matter where in the world you are tuning in from today. We have a major developing story breaking tonight involving a former Supreme Court justice currently living in exile who has just leveled a bombshell accusation against the administration. Our news desk has obtained a comprehensive and scathing statement released publicly by the former Justice Dr. Esther Kitimbo Kisaki, which details some truly alarming allegations. In this explosive open letter, she has publicly indicted President Yoweri Museveni, accusing him of presiding over a brutal campaign of violence against political dissenters. She alleges this crackdown intensified immediately following his disputed re-election victory, and she is demanding an immediate cessation of the repressive tactics currently sweeping through Uganda. The language used in her statement is stark, describing a nation where safety is a luxury nobody can afford and where the rule of law has completely evaporated. She paints a chilling picture of a country where a military general can sit back, sip a glass of whiskey, and arbitrarily order the execution of a citizen on a whim. I want to walk you through the specifics of this extensive declaration posted by the Exiled jurist, because every single line carries significant weight regarding the crisis unfolding on the ground. This dispatch directly addresses the current volatile situation in Uganda, specifically highlighting the alleged post-election persecution and humiliation targeting opposition figure Bobi Wine. Let us dive right into the text of this open letter from Justice Kisaki, titled simply as a message to President Yoweri Museveni, President of the Republic of Uganda. It begins, Mr. President Kaguta Museveni, on the 15th of January 2026, you stood as a candidate in the Ugandan presidential race. 2 days later, on the 17th of January 2026, the Electoral Commission officially declared you the victor of that contest. However, in the days since that declaration, disturbing footage and audio recordings have emerged where you repeatedly characterize your political rivals and their base as terrorists. Furthermore, credible reports persist regarding military and police forces launching crackdown operations against the civilian population. These operations are notably concentrated in the central region areas that cast their ballots overwhelmingly for the opposition rather than for you and your ruling NRM party. One of your primary challengers, Robert Kyagulanyi, has seen his residence placed under total siege starting from election day itself, forcing him into hiding to preserve his own life. On the 23rd of January 2026, the situation escalated when his home was raided under the cover of darkness. The attack was carried out by masked gunmen, a mixed force comprised of individuals in official military and police fatigues alongside others in plain civilian clothes. Harrowing accounts released on social platforms by his wife Barbie Kyagulanyi detail a nightmare scenario of unauthorized entry, physical assaults on her and the household staff. She further described severe property damage and the looting of communication devices, including phones, electronics, and closed-circuit television surveillance systems. The crackdown extends to elected officials. The Honourable Member of Parliament Mwanga Kivumbi, serving as the National Unity Platform's Vice President for the Central Region, has been slapped with terrorism charges. These charges, which allege he attacked a police precinct, stand in stark contradiction to earlier on-the-ground reports. Those initial reports indicated that his own residence was the target of an assault on election night by uniformed gunmen, a tragic incident that reportedly resulted in the loss of 10 lives. The leadership vacuum grows as 2 additional NUP vice presidents, Dr. Lina Zedriga, representing northern Uganda, and Jolly Mugisha from western Uganda, have been flagged on social media as victims of state-sanctioned abductions. Their current locations remain a complete mystery to this day, raising serious concerns for their safety. Meanwhile, another titan of the opposition, Dr. Kizza Besigye, is currently being held in unlawful detention. Alarming updates suggest his health is rapidly deteriorating, yet he is being cruelly denied access to his personal medical team. Even the clergy are not immune. A Catholic priest, Father Sebira, finds himself behind bars apparently for the crime of merely associating with opposition leader Robert Kyagulanyi. Civil society organizations are being stripped of their licenses to operate, and prominent activists like Sarah Barit are languishing in prison cells on charges that many legal experts deem highly questionable. Beyond the headlines, countless ordinary Ugandan citizens have vanished or been thrown into illegal detention centers solely due to their political ideologies or their support for opposition candidates. Mr. President, You hold the title of President of Uganda and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. Your own son serves as the Chief of Defense Forces. Is it plausible to claim that this wave of terror is unfolding without your knowledge or your stamp of approval? If you deny authorizing these actions, the question becomes, what concrete measures have you implemented to restore order? What are you doing to enforce discipline and legality within the army and police, especially considering they operate under your direct command? You ran your campaign on the platform of securing the nation's progress and protecting citizens. As a concerned citizen myself, I must ask, what does that slogan actually look like in practice? Does protecting the gains mean hunting down your rivals? Does it mean placing opponents under military siege, arresting them, branding them as terrorists, and locking them away for indefinite durations? The Constitution of Uganda, which was enacted under your very own watch, guarantees a multi-party democracy and provides a legal avenue for dissatisfied candidates to seek justice before the Supreme Court. But when opposition figures are hunted down like prey, their homes encircled by armed battalions, and their political parties designated as terror groups, do those constitutional promises hold any water? This is not a new phenomenon born in 2026. It is a systematic pattern targeting various political actors over time, with the National Unity Platform leaders and their supporters simply being the latest victims in the crosshairs. I pose the question to the nation: as a country, are we marching toward progress or are we retreating into the dark ages? If your victory was legitimate, why obstruct opposition leaders from utilizing lawful constitutional channels to challenge the results if they so choose? What version of peace are you claiming to protect when entire segments of the population are living in a state of constant fear and unrest? Ultimately, we must ask ourselves, do we exist as one united Uganda, or have we become two separate nations? Let's get straight to the heart of the matter, folks. President Museveni has strategically appointed a new Chief Justice right at the critical moment when opposition leader Bobi Wine would typically be filing a legal challenge. However, Wine has made it crystal clear that he refuses to validate a corrupt system. He will not be launching a petition in the courts because he knows the verdict is already written. The opposition leader can predict the judicial ruling with the same accuracy that he predicted the election results, effectively reading the regime's playbook before they even execute the play. It is the exact same scenario we witnessed with the Electoral Commission led by Justice Bayabakama, where Wine knew exactly what fraudulent numbers they were going to announce long before they stepped up to the microphone. Consequently, in this specific instance, Bobi Wine is bypassing the courtroom entirely because he argues, quite frankly with good reason, that the outcome is predetermined and the legal process is nothing more than a theatre of the absurd. Now, we are receiving some explosive intel directly from a Supreme Court justice who is currently living in exile, and let me tell you, every single piece of information checks out as factual. You have all seen the disturbing footage regarding the treatment of Barbie Kyagulanyi, and the accounts coming from the judge align perfectly with the harassment we know took place. You can hear the fear and indignation in the audio recordings where she confronts the intruders, demanding to know why they have breached the sanctity of her private residence. She is literally screaming at them, asking what business they have, trespassing on her family's property, and demanding they explain their presence in her compound immediately. The confidential details that this exiled Supreme Court magistrate has released to the public appear to be 100% authentic because they mirror the patterns we observe on the ground. These are the exact systematic abuses we have been dissecting in our geopolitical analysis for months, and they confirm the reality of what is transpiring inside Uganda right now. We have been tracking this timeline of oppression, extensively documenting every major event, both leading up to the vote and in the chaotic aftermath. So we can say with confidence that these allegations are not just theories, they are facts. In fact, if you look at the harrowing account involving Barbie Kyagulanyi, the spouse of Robert Kyagulanyi, it paints a terrifying picture of a democracy under siege. You must have seen the reports detailing how she was confronted by a squad of heavily weaponized military commandos who stormed her home under the cover of darkness and forced their way into her private quarters. The evidence is out there. You saw the aftermath, and she personally gave a chilling account of exactly how that invasion of privacy went down. These specific human rights violations were highlighted by the exiled Supreme Court judge, who also raised serious concerns regarding the current status of Robert Kyagulanyi himself. The man has been effectively barred from entering his own home because the military has laid a total siege on the property. They are hunting him down with relentless determination. The regime wants Bobi Wine in custody at all costs, forcing him to go underground, operating from safe houses and only surfacing on mainstream media networks for brief high-stakes interviews. There is a treasure trove of information to unpack from this judicial leak. But there is one specific point that stands out which demands our immediate attention. It circles back to a point I raised in my previous deep dive analysis, when I discussed the diplomatic pressure and the response from United States senators who had channeled their concerns to the White House. As I stated clearly in that broadcast, expecting the current administration to voluntarily reverse the presidency of Museveni is a pipe dream. Trying to overturn this regime through legal channels is like asking an ant to push a boulder up a mountain. Of course, it is simply not going to happen in the current climate. The courts are completely incapacitated, which explains exactly why you have a sitting Supreme Court justice fleeing the country for her own safety. Why did she run? Because she likely clashed with Museveni at a critical juncture and refused to compromise her judicial integrity. She most likely refused to bend the knee to the unconstitutional demands coming from the Museveni administration, and in a dictatorship, defiance puts a target on your back. That is the probable reason she is currently in exile, sending desperate messages back to the palace imploring Museveni to show some leniency and pump the brakes on the persecution of Robert Kyagulanyi. We have to remember that he was a legitimate presidential candidate who secured nearly 30% of the vote, even according to the rigged official numbers. That means he commands the loyalty of a massive percentage of the population, a mandate that cannot be ignored despite what the Electoral Commission formally pronounced. The judge is simply trying to send a flare to the government in Kampala, warning them to desist from this brutal mistreatment of the opposition leadership. She is calling for an immediate end to the harassment of Robert Kyagulanyi, knowing that continuing down this path could lead to total instability. For those of you who have been following our investigative series, we have already shared the grim details of this mistreatment in our previous video reports. The bottom line is this: the Supreme Court judge has access to privileged information, and she knows exactly what dark operations have been executed behind the scenes in Uganda. According to her, this is not an isolated incident. It is a systemic pattern of behavior that the regime relies on to maintain power. We saw this exact same playbook utilized in 2021, and unfortunately, it is recurring right now. It is happening again in 2026. The strategy is to batter the opposition leaders so severely that they are physically or mentally unable to petition the courts. Look at Kizza Besigye, who is currently languishing in custody as we speak. Besigye has walked this exact path of sorrow, subjected to brutal torture and immense suffering simply because he dared to participate in an election, ladies and gentlemen. So, the message directed to the presidency and the Chief of Defense Forces is simple. You hold all the cards, so why are you acting so paranoid? It is a very simple question coming from the exiled judge, but it carries the weight of the entire international community behind it. What exactly are you so afraid of that you feel the need to crush dissent with such overwhelming force? I want to hear your take on this, ladies and gentlemen. Head down to the comments section and tell us what you think about these bombshell revelations from the exiled judge. And if you are watching this coverage for the first time and haven't joined our community yet, take 1 second to smash that subscribe button and like this video. Until we catch up again on the next update, stay vigilant, stay safe, and stay blessed.